Say we do it.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to those who are here in the space and to those that are online. Welcome to 36 Degrees North. We are so excited that you all are here. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here. My name is Tara Payne, and I'm the Camp 2 Community Coordinator for 36 Degrees North. And I'm here with my friend, Michelle Brown-Verdex, who is the Program Coordinator and Tour Guide at Greenwood Cultural Center. So we wanted to, we're excited to launch this new speaker series and uplift the stories of Tulsa entrepreneurs past and present. Before we get started, we want to introduce our two organizations to you. 36 Degrees North is Tulsa's base camp for entrepreneurs, and our entire mission is to help entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs themselves thrive in our city. We do this by providing inspiring workspace, a tight-knit community, and resources to get entrepreneurs to the next step in their journey. So that's a little bit about me and 36 Degrees North. Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story in Greenwood Cultural Center.
So as Tara said, I'm the program coordinator and tour guide. I've been at the Greenwood Cultural Center for 25 years now. The center had opened maybe 6 months before I arrived. And we have, for the past little more than 25 years, worked in a very modest way to educate the public about the events of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre and Black Wall Street. It's a story that for many years wasn't discussed. It wasn't included in our classrooms, in our textbooks, in our history lessons. And so when the Cultural Center opened, we do also offer after-school programs and summer programs for children. So we are a cultural center, but in honor and respect for the Black entrepreneurs who helped to build Black Wall Street, and in honor of the history, the legacy of that historic district, we wanted to make sure that we played a role in recognizing our history. I'm a Tulsa native, born and raised in North Tulsa, and we never learned about the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre or Black Wall Street. I am the great-grandchild of Sherman Teal, who owned a barbershop in Wellington, Kansas. My grandfather, Wendell Phillip Teal, owned a barbershop in Yuma, Arizona, where my mother is from, and owned several rental properties. And so we didn't talk much about entrepreneurship growing up, but I was somewhat familiar with their history, our family's history. But it is an honor to be here tonight, to be able to discuss entrepreneurship and to hopefully inspire others through the history of Black Wall Street, and perhaps highlighting other entrepreneurs here in Tulsa through the series.
Well, we are so excited to be here. I'm excited to be here with you. We wanted to, many of you may not know, but this is the first week in a 4-week series. So we wanted to take this first week of the series to kind of lay the groundwork for the rest of the series and touch on the backstory of how this series came to be. Here at 36 Degrees North, our goal is to make 36 Degrees North look like Tulsa. We want this space to be inclusive. We recognize that when talking about entrepreneurship, to be in the city of Tulsa, you have to include Black Wall Street because it's critical when speaking to and about entrepreneurship in our city. So we wanted to make sure we had a conversation with the right people leading the conversation, which is why we partner. We're so excited to partner with the Greenwood Cultural Center and honored that you all will partner with us. Because of the centennial, you know, there's a lot of initiatives that are coming to the city, and we are so grateful for those initiatives. But we wanted also to highlight, we wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some of the things that are already going on in our city. As you mentioned, there are phenomenal business owners and things that go on from Tulsans. So we wanted to take this time to highlight that. We're going to be highlighting some of the amazing stories of the people who built Black Wall Street and Greenwood and tie their stories and their legacy into the stories of modern day Black entrepreneurs in Tulsa. So over the course of this series, we're going to learn more stories from Black Wall Street that you may have never heard, some of you may, and also we're going to learn from these entrepreneurs how they've been impacted by the massacre and how the spirit of and the legacy of Black Wall Street impacts them. So before today, we thought we would highlight the pioneers from Black Wall Street and their stories, but before we begin that, we don't want to assume that you all know the story. Let's tell the story for those who may not know. So Mark, one of our team members, came across this beautiful poetic piece by a lovely lady from Atlanta, Georgia. We thought it would be a brilliant, creative way to tell the story of Black Wall Street. So we want to begin with that. If you would help me welcome Eder Williams to the podium. Before we get started, Eder, I just want to tell a little bit about you. Eder J. Williams McKnight is an educator and poet who elevates deep learning and transformational experiences. Eder has collaborated with local visual and performance artists like Crystal Z. Campbell and Alexander Taman to produce poems concerning Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Race Massacre. They have been performed live in various venues, such as the John Hope Reconciliation Arts, in the Park Program, and in the Gilcrease Museum. They have appeared in print in Art Focus Oklahoma and Oklahoma Today. Eder was a founding member of Focus Black Oklahoma's radio show, led by Quraish Ali Lansana. Eder holds an AD from Brown University, an MA from the Breadloaf School of English at Middlebury College, an Ed.M. from Teachers College of Columbia University, and an MFA in poetry from Stone Coast of the University of Southern Maine. She has resided in Tulsa, Oklahoma since 2014. If you'd help me again, welcome Eder. She's going to be performing her piece, Witness.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I want to thank Greenwood Cultural Center, 36 Degrees North, and especially Mark, who I got to know through Tulsa Service Year, and he invited me in, and here we are. So this is beautiful, and thank you for being here. Yeah. Okay. So this is, like Tara said, it's a kind of a poetic overview of the story of Greenwood. And another collaboration is with the choreographer and dance teacher and dancer, Tyne Schillingford. And she created a piece for students at Holland Hall. And we talk a lot, and I said, there has to be context. And so the teacher and me was like, we gotta put something together. So I started piecing things together from different sources and added this as the beginning of her piece. So I wanted to just name that, Tyne Schillingford, and if you are interested in that piece, it aired at Holland Hall, April 28th, 2021. Witness. The ground of Greenwood. It begins with the Trail of Tears. It begins with enslaved and free Africans who arrived with the Muscogee Creek to Indian Territory. After the Civil War, upon being granted their freedom, these Africans were made tribal citizens with rights to land. They were now called freedmen. Creek freedmen land allotments became the ground that would found Greenwood. In the beginning, writes Greenwood attorney Buck Colbert Franklin and father of famed historian Dr. John Hope Franklin, there was no segregation of the races. They lived together and were buried together. This was due mostly to the fact that the Indians and freedmen owned most, if not all, of the land. Greenwood Buds. Greenwood is a branch in the network of Black towns founded before Oklahoma becomes a state. Many were attracted to the oil-soaked territory. For Blacks, oil means work, but perhaps more important, it means freedom. Just before statehood in 1907, entrepreneurs O.W. Gurley and J.B. Jack Stratford bought many acres of land and sold it only to African Americans in the northern part of segregated Tulsa. They would found a relatively safe and self-sustaining community. When O.W. Gurley opened the People's Grocery Store in 1905 at the corner of Greenwood and Archer Street, writes journalist Victor Luckerson, Black Wall Street was born. Greenwood flourishes. Greenwood Avenue and Archer Street are the gateway. Greenwood becomes its own hive, providing commercial needs and services for the community that buzzes on the edge of segregated Tulsa. In its closed economy, the dollar circulates in the community 36 times. Witness the doctor, dentist, and beautician leaving their homes in the morning to head to work. Witness pedestrians on their errands to Economy Drug to buy medicine or mail a letter at the postal substation housed there. Witness the children with starched clothes on their way to strong schools. Witness the young woman proud of her job as a launderer at the ever so fine Stratford Hotel. You might grab this Tulsa Star newspaper. On a special night, you might go to Dreamland Theater to enjoy an evening or jazz or watch a silent film. On Sunday, you might attend one of several churches like the newly constructed edifice of Mount Zion Baptist Church. Headlines strike a match. In the Tulsa Tribune, May 31st, 1921, a headline reads, "Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator." The story reports that Dick Rowland, a Negro delivery boy, was arrested for trying to assault Tara Payne, a white elevator girl, in the Drexel building elevator where she worked. What really happened is not actually known. Several stories questioned the report. Even Sarah Page eventually said that the encounter was innocent, and days later, the Tribune editor admitted that some details they printed were untrue. Sarah Page would refuse to file charges, and Dick Rowland would be exonerated. However, now, the match has been struck. The article successfully delivered the very words that gave white men the license to lynch. Aware of African American vulnerability to white lynch mobs, and with lynchings on the rise even before the Red Summer of 1919, many communities had begun to organize in self-defense. At the same time, white Tulsans had been increasing their enrollment in the Ku Klux Klan. Dick Rowland gets placed in jail, guarded by Sheriff Willard McCullough. By the end of the evening, there are 400 white men outside the jail, eager to take the law into their own hands. Hearing the rumors, armed Black men from Greenwood, many veterans from World War I, offer their assistance to the sheriff. Later that evening, more armed men, white and Black, surround the courthouse. Whites demand that Rowland be released. They aim to lynch him. Blacks demand his release so that they can protect him. A white man, possibly a police officer, approaches a Black man who holds a gun and commands he relinquish it. He does not. A struggle ensues. A shot is fired skyward. Gunfire is exchanged. The street clears out, one victim lays dead. Each side retreats to their own corners of Tulsa in order to regroup. Little Africa on fire. Witness, a photograph in sepia. Handwritten script on the picture says, "Little Africa on fire, Tulsa Race Riot, June 1, 1921. The photo has been shot from the air. In the background, smoldering, bloated Plumes of smoke roar from buildings, so magnified that they extend the edges of the photo. Buildings in the foreground are downtown, not engulfed, not in Greenwood. The monstrous charcoal clouds obscure Greenwood's buildings. We cannot smell the charred bodies. Witness, a photo of burning houses. 521 North Greenwood Avenue, 523 North Detroit Avenue, 523 North Detroit Avenue, 529 North Detroit Avenue, 531, 537, 541. This street is one of the most exclusive in North Tulsa. Behind the numbers are family names: Thompson, McGill, Woods, Gentry, Brown, and Jackson. Dr. Andrew C. Jackson was a renowned Black surgeon and former president of the State Medical Association. Dr. Jackson had his hands raised to surrender to a group of whites, and he was shot. Witness, a postcard. It is a photo of a stately church. One notices the many stained glass windows that must tell stories of biblical texts and healing scenes and disciples who learn to love. Through the sepia, we can guess that the brick is a majestic red. The left of the photo shows its belfry. The apex of its roof is hidden in gray and white billows that menace and grow. The church is Mount Zion Baptist on North Elgin Avenue, a new building dedicated 7 weeks before. The sender of the postcard writes, "Burning of church where ammunition was stored during Tulsa race riot." It was rumored that weapons had been brought in via caskets. The rumor was never proven true. However, Greenwood men did defend themselves in the belfry, sniping at rioters during the night. In response, a white mob torches the church. By 7:30 a.m., June 1st, it was aflame. Siege. Fighting occurs during the night of May 31st. Greenwood is under siege. According to later reports, police deputized citizens encouraging them to hunt Negroes. Mobs had even traveled to South Tulsa, ferreting out Black servants from their white employers. By the early hours of June 1st, white mobs moved through Greenwood, shooting any Black person they can find. Men and women loot homes, carrying everything from silk shirts to jewelry to pianos. Houses are set on fire and multiple residents, young and old, male and female, burn inside. Airplanes hover above, loaded with nitroglycerin or kerosene bombs, and drop them over houses and businesses. The Oklahoma National Guard arrives in the dawn of Wednesday, June 1st, 1921. Armed guards round up Greenwood residents and march them to internment camps. 1/2 of Tulsa's Black population is forcibly interned at McNulty Baseball Park at 10th and Elgin, the Convention Hall at 105th West Brady, and the Tulsa Fairgrounds at 21st and Yale. With so many of its Black workers in internment camps, Tulsa's labor force greatly diminishes. The city quickly makes a plan. It issues green cards declaring that Black citizens may only move around with these passes on their clothes, signed by their white employers. Without the cards, they are subject to arrest. Greenwood regenerates. In newspapers, city officials immediately blame African Americans for the massacre and declare that Greenwood should not be rebuilt. A grand jury argues that armed Black men at the courthouse were the direct cause of the massacre, and that agitation for social equality is also to blame. However, after the last ember extinguishes amongst charred debris, there is recovery. The American Red Cross begins relief efforts on June 1. Lawyers like Bugsy Franklin, father of historian Dr. John Hope Franklin, are instrumental in reestablishing Greenwood. His firm, Spears, Franklin, and Chappelle, prepare lawsuits under a makeshift tent. Franklin helps to build a new city fire ordinance designed to make rebuilding in Greenwood prohibitive. North Tulsa mother churches like Mount Zion eventually reconvene. Residents and business owners fight against land grabs by whites seeking to possess their new properties at a low price. Greenwood survivors, while deflated by the terror, find their way again. By 1942, more than 200 Black-owned businesses are in operation, about 100 more than existed before. There are cafes, hotels, grocers, cleaners, drugstores, pool halls, beauty salons, doctors and attorneys' offices, and more. Black Wall Street is back. Greenwood aspires. After World War II and the decades following, other forces threatened the Greenwood district. With integration, residents began to spend elsewhere. They were a new market for mainstream businesses. Now, $12 to $15 million were spent outside of the district. Urban Renewal, a national effort to redevelop distressed urban areas, often had negative implications in inner city districts. Quote, "There are two ways in which whites destroy a Black community," Dr. John Hope Franklin wrote. "One is by building a freeway through it. The other is by changing the zoning laws." External economic pressures also caused a decline in Greenwood's vitality. And two, there was the deep silence about the massacre. For many years, the stories were not told, the history not taught in schools, the devastation erased from Tulsa's collective memory. However, there is another pressure, and it is happening now. This is a pressure for Greenwood and all that it symbolizes. It is a call to remember, repair, and stay resilient against current land encroachment. A call for Greenwood to invest in itself and innovate. A call for justice. A call for a new renaissance. Black Wall Street is not past tense. John Hope Franklin, right before his death, said, quote, "Someday we will have the joy and pleasure of complete reconciliation. We're moving in that direction. I hope we get there very soon. There is still work to do." Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. That was amazing. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. In this series, we are going to highlight some of the Black Wall Street entrepreneurs that you've heard of before and some that you have not. But we thought that this would be a great opportunity to highlight a few of the entrepreneurs who led the way, including some that Eder mentioned in her poem. O.W. Gurley, who's considered the founder of Black Wall Street. He was also one of the founders of Vernon AME Church in the Greenwood District today. He owned a general store. He was one of the first Black millionaires in the country. He was a lender, and in 1905, he purchased 40 acres of land near the corner of Greenwood and Archer. And with the intent to only sell those plots to other African Americans moving into the Greenwood District looking to themselves become entrepreneurs. J.B. Stratford was an attorney and realtor who, after moving to Tulsa, worked with alongside O.W. Gurley, and built the Stratford Hotel, which was one of the most prominent African-American hotels in all of the country. It had more than 54 rooms. It was valued at $50,000. In addition to the hotel, he also owned more than 24 rental homes, and his own home was valued at $125,000 during the early 1920s. It is said that he earned up to $500 a month. There are many others, such as Dr. A.C. Jackson. The Mayo brothers called him one of the most able Negro surgeons in America, and he was located in the Greenwood district. Buck Franklin, the attorney. The list goes on, and I do want to mention that there is a wonderful book available now, The Victory of Greenwood by Carlos Moreno. Check it out. He features many of the stories of Black entrepreneurs. And of course, you can always visit the Greenwood Cultural Center to learn more. But tonight, we have another Tulsa entrepreneur in our presence, who I'm so proud to know, and so proud to have this conversation with tonight, Ms. Tara Payne. I met Tara, we were both members of the Thrive class in, I believe, 2019. I had an opportunity to meet her then, and have always respected her and just admired her as a person. Didn't know at the time that she was an entrepreneur. But Tara, I'd like to ask you when you first learned about the history of Black Wall Street.
So I, as you mentioned, was born here in Tulsa. And my parents are both from Tulsa. My parents actually, because they're both from Tulsa, I think took great pride in knowing that Black Wall Street was here. So they taught us as children. We grew up in Bartlesville, which is 45 miles north, predominantly white. And we always knew, I think whenever we were old enough to learn the story, they were teaching us that happened.
And that's amazing because so many people born and raised here in Tulsa never heard about the story. And so how do you think that impacted you, and how did that influence your view on entrepreneurship as a Black female?
So I was amazed. I was like, wait, Black people do this? In Tulsa? Like Tulsa, Oklahoma? Like where you're from? And so they were like, yes. And I think that was the moment when, looking back, I mean, I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I feel like that is part of what sparked my curiosity for entrepreneurship. And just knowing that as a Black woman, I could do anything. Like, it was just like, okay, well, if they could do that, I could do something too.
Absolutely. And that's why it is so important for us to educate our children and future generations about the history of Black Wall Street, because we are able to highlight images of successful and savvy Black business owners who were able to create the most prosperous Black-owned business district in the country with all of the obstacles and challenges that they had to face during that time.
World-renowned community in our city
by
Black people. So that was just amazing to me. And I want to take time and thank my parents, because they were both employees, but they instilled, by telling the story. I mean, I've always heard that you can't be what you don't see. By telling that story to us, I could see that. So you're right, it's so important that we tell our children.
Yes. When you think about the history of Black Wall Street and the entrepreneurs that we've discussed tonight, and others that perhaps we haven't, and maybe entrepreneurs today, who influenced you? Who did you admire or look up to?
So many people, and if I tried to name all of the people, I would surely forget somebody. A couple of those people are in this room. First, again, my parents inspired me. My dad, honestly, my dad should have been an inventor. He would create stuff around the house, and I'd be like, that is dope. Did you do that? You know, just crazy stuff like something that would help us dry our shoes, you know, quicker. But then also being surrounded by people who you see making moves and doing things. One of them being Crystal Ifakoya, the founder of WOW. She really encouraged me to do those things that are on my heart. My mom was always a big supporter. Being around people like Cindy McGee and Kenya Carter and Tamala Huffman and Tamika Whitaker and just so many different names is inspiring just to see other people who you know doing stuff like that.
When you think about people who are aspiring entrepreneurs or who are new entrepreneurs, is there any advice that you would want to share with them?
Absolutely. So for me, I feel, first of all, honored to be having this conversation because the business that I started in 2020 out of necessity. It was a virtual assistant business. As you know, we were in a global pandemic. My husband and I were both furloughed at home and we needed money. So like the entrepreneurs of Black Wall Street, necessity, you know, dictated, hey, we gotta do something. We gotta pay the bills. We have a 5-year-old. What are you gonna do? I don't have time to go back to school. I don't really wanna go back to school. You know, so I thought, what skills do I have and how can I make money now? So if I were to encourage an entrepreneur, because I think a lot of times, number one, I would say, all you have is all you need. And that I definitely did not make that up. I heard that from Pastor Mike Tide at Transformation Church. But I think for me, I felt like I kind of avoided it for years because I saw my parents as employees. In my mind, I thought, go to college, get a job, stay there 30 years. That's how you're gonna. But every 5 years or so, my sister said I would get an itch and I would be like, I can't stay here. I just feel like something else I gotta do. And I didn't know it was entrepreneurship. So if I were to encourage, but I was always creative, always innovative, right? But I thought I was a creative person, not necessarily a business person. If I were to encourage somebody who's an entrepreneur, I would say, start right now. Surround yourself with other people who are gonna encourage you and just do it. You gotta be scrappy, like, you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
That was my thing. I felt like if I could take a course, then I think I'll be ready. Okay, well, wait, if I could do this, I'll be ready. You're ready right now. So that's what I would tell them.
So I could ask you a million questions. I won't, but so how can we, as entrepreneurs, Black or not, continue the spirit of Black Wall Street?
That's a great question. And I think it's important that we make sure, and I'm glad that you included Black or not, because I feel sometimes that when we talk about Black Wall Street, people who are not Black feel like sometimes, and I'm so excited to see in this room that not everybody in this room, for those of you who are online, you can't see this, but not everybody in this room is Black. And that's so important. So for all of us, we have to realize that nobody has the monopoly on innovation. God created us all. To me, I feel like God created us as solutions to problems. So we just have to figure out, what problem am I here to solve? Who can I partner with to get me there?
So for those of us who may not be familiar with 36 Degrees North and the different programs and services that they offer, can you tell us a little bit about how 36 Degrees North can help aspiring entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. So while we were furloughed at home, I was working my business from home, and I thought, I've got to get out of this house. I need another place to work. Though I have my office at home, I've got to go somewhere else. I had been to some programs here at 36 Degrees North and thought, the energy there is amazing. I would love to be around other entrepreneurs to keep myself encouraged. So that is something that, if you don't know, there are many events here that we host that are free to the public. You don't have to be a member. You can come, you can learn. For instance, how do I do my taxes? How do I create a website? Just different things. So for the public, go to our website and check out the events that we have, because you're able to come and take advantage of those for free.
Thank you so much for that. So at this time, we'd like to open up for questions. If you guys have any questions that you would like to ask either myself or Tara, we'd love to. There's a mic there.
Questions in the back?
Hello, I was facing down, so I won't block anyone. This is for both of you. Could you explain what is the Thrive class that you both had taken part of and who sponsors it?
It was a program offered by Leadership Tulsa. It was created to help empower and equip and train new leaders.
So everybody in the Thrive, exactly what Michelle said, everybody in our class, we're all Tulsans who love our city, who see an issue that we want to help solve. So we have diverse people from different backgrounds who say, hey, we love the city, how can we make it better, and how can I help with that?
Thank you. That was a question. Make sure glasses in the back.
Thanks so much. Randy Williams from Build in Tulsa. Quick question. I've been here 8 months and I've come into 36 several times. I see amazing entrepreneurs sitting here. I just have no idea who they are. Months later, weeks later, it's like, oh, I've seen you walking around. How can we create more opportunities for collisions that can create significant impact? One of the things that we talk about at Build in Tulsa is radical collaboration. So we'd love to kind of help infuse that here where we have entrepreneurs who normally wouldn't talk to each other working together and building new types of ideas together to create that.
I think that's a great question. I think the first thing, and I definitely, if you guys, something else comes up, please feel. But I think the first thing is going to be in space, to come into space and then take advantage of the programming. Those are two things. We do every Friday have a happy hour, and that time is designed for entrepreneurs and members to be able to speak with one another and to learn, what each other does and to find out if there's a possibility for partnership. Is there anything else that you guys want to add?
Free co-working day.
Free co-working day. The third
Wednesday of every month.
We have free co-working day, and free co-working day is for anyone. So if you want to come to space and just learn more about what we do here and talk to our members, that's a good day to do it.
It's also the same day as 1 million cups.
It's also the same day as 1 million cups.
So that would be a great time to come and learn more about what's available here
Yes.
and to speak with some other entrepreneurs who may already be members.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I would say don't be afraid to, because some people are not, like, I don't have a problem. If you know me, I don't have a problem talking to anybody. But some people are not like that. So I would say when you come into space, everybody here is pretty friendly. If they're not, come get me. So, just don't be afraid to ask people for help. Don't be afraid to ask our staff. We're more than willing to help you to get acclimated to the space.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? My name is Monty Williams. I'm a Tulsa native myself, also an entrepreneur. And I just had a question because Miss who's her name?
Eder.
Miss Eder's presented some information that I was not familiar with about Greenwood. I had no idea about the internment camps. But my question is, because this is a subject that I have been, I've been kind of researching my whole life, curious about my whole life. I stayed on Greenwood, went to Carter Middle School, so I know all about the Gap and all that. But I was wondering, you hear this term Black Wall Street, and when you hear the term Wall Street, you think stocks, and I'm thinking around the time that all this went on, back then the stock market, they used ticker tapes. So there should be some sort of, if there was actually some stocks or options or whatever that was being traded back then, there should be some historical evidence. And I was just wondering, because you seem to have found some information that I did not. And I don't know if this is a topic that'll be covered later on in the week, but was there actually a Wall Street? Were there actual securities being traded?
Funny enough, I wrote another poem that plays with that idea of Wall Street, but that's for another time. My understanding is that it was Booker T. Washington who saw what was going on in the Greenwood district. And he said, upon being so impressed with, the flourishing nature of businesses here and the community that was built, that this is a Black Wall Street, right? So I don't know if there were actual securities being traded in stocks and bonds, literally, but there was a Black bank, right? And so there was a connection to market, but beyond that, I don't know. I'm gonna hand it over to the expert.
No, definitely not. No, she's absolutely correct. And we are all continuing to learn more about the history of the Greenwood District because it was hidden by Blacks and whites for so many years. Whites didn't want to talk about it. Many of them were ashamed about what had taken place. Blacks didn't talk about it much either, which is why Tara's story was so fascinating to me, the fact that her parents actually shared this history with her because most of us grew up not knowing anything about it. And when we asked our survivors back between 96 and 2001, we identified over 100 survivors who were willing to come forward and tell their story. And when we asked them, why didn't you tell your children and grandchildren about what happened, about the massacre or about Black Wall Street, they said it was simply too painful. To talk about it meant that we had to relive it. And it was too painful. There were more churches in North Tulsa than all of Tulsa combined. So they had a strong foundation in their faith. And they decided almost as a community that they were going to put this in God's hands and move forward and focus on surviving and then focus on rebuilding. And that's exactly what they did. And to their testament, by 1925 or so, they had completely rebuilt the Greenwood District. We saw more Black-owned businesses on Greenwood following the massacre that had been there prior to. So it speaks to their courage, to their resilience, to their strength, to their determination, which speaks to who we are as a people now. And that's the story that we want to continue to highlight in this series as we recognize Black entrepreneurs in Tulsa and connect that with the Black entrepreneurs from both prior to the massacre and those that stayed and helped to rebuild the Greenwood District afterwards.
Absolutely, that's something that our team took a tour of Greenwood Cultural Center, and having been told the story, I think it was like a really brief overview that my parents told me. I did not know until this year that it was actually rebuilt. So if you haven't been to the Greenwood Cultural Center, there is an amazing tour given by Michelle herself, and you can learn so many facts.
We're continuing to learn. There are a lot of great resources, a ton of new books that have been published, including one by Dr. Carlos Hill. On our website, we have a new website that is www.greenwoodculturalcenter.org, and we list of resources that are available. So there's no one source. There are so many people that are doing the work, that have done the research, that are coming out with new information. There's so much that I've learned just over the past year. And I've been telling the story for years, but there have been many things that were new, information that was new to me. So I encourage us all to learn more so that we can do what the survivors said was important to them. When the state legislature issued the final report of the Tulsa Race Riot Commission, as it was called then, in 2001 or so, I, along with another gentleman, escorted them to the state capitol. And there were several reporters that approached the survivors and asked them, we know you're asking for reparations. Just what exactly do you want? And they said, well, of course we believe that reparations are due for everything that our families lost, their homes, their businesses, their lives even, but what we want more than anything is for our children and grandchildren to finally know that there's more to Black history than slavery and the civil rights movement. We want them to know that we were savvy business owners, that we were proud of one another, that we loved ourselves and we loved each other, we loved our community. So when one person would get their business up and off the ground, they would grab the hand of their brother or sister and pull them up alongside them. That's our history. And that's what we're hoping to replicate with this speaker series. So I am so proud to be a part of this, to play a small role along with Tara and 36 Degrees North.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was so eloquently put. I appreciate that. Yeah. We want to thank everyone who came, who is here in person, and those who are here virtually. We want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to register for the upcoming weeks. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is a 4-part series, tonight being the first week. So we are so glad that you're here. And again, we are very honored to partner with Greenwood Cultural Center for this. In the spirit of entrepreneurship, in the spirit of Black Wall Street, we have a young entrepreneur among us. I don't know if you have heard of Onifada's Cookie Company. Have you heard of it? You have now.
Oh, it's so good.
So can I tell you that I first saw Onifade at the Greenwood Cultural Center?
Yeah.
And I was there for an event and the line was really long and I was like, what's in this room? What are they selling? And somebody said, there's a little boy in there, he has cookies. And I was just like, okay, so this is great. These cookies are amazing.
Yeah.
Onifade is amazing, his mother's amazing. So we have some treats for those of you who are here from Onifade for you to take with you. And we just want you to know that we're grateful again for you to be here.
Is he here?
He is here. Onifade, can you stand up?
Woohoo! Amazing.
So, that's it.
Thank
Thank you. I really appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Have a good evening.
Thank you all again so much for coming. Free day passes up at our front desk. So if you want to come back and work with us and spend some time with us here at the 36 Degrees North community, come and see us. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, you know,